You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their missions through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media.
Jenny, I can't think of the last time I watched ABC, NBC, any of those broadcast TV. Well, that's not true. I watch a lot of football, but I don't watch ABC, NBC unless it's like sports. Why are we buying or still buying broadcast TV?
Ooh, the most hated question of every media buyer.
Well, that's our topic today.
Yeah, happy to debunk some of this stuff. There's a lot of research out that is showing us that we should be putting all of our eggs into the bucket of streaming, but there's still definitely some strong reasons as to why we should be keeping broadcast on our plans.
Well, let's set the stage first. What is TV?
Yeah, so when we talk about TV, we're going to talk about three buckets. It's our broadcast, cable, and streaming. And our broadcast, I think everyone, is aware, ABC, NBC, CBS, right? All of those local affiliates where we're getting a lot of our news. And then cable, of course, through a cable provider like a Comcast, where we're getting a lot of our networks like a TBS, TNT, Discovery. And then streaming really is where we're bypassing cable to get a lot of that content. But it can be the same type of, show content that we're getting in streaming versus cable. But it's over the air. It's bypassing a cable provider and using the internet to reach that audience.
Yeah, and let's make the distinction between sitting on my phone and sitting on my couch and watching the big screen TV.
Yeah, so we'll kind of think of TV as like a real TV screen. So most of the broadcast, most of cable is consumed on the real TV screen, but streaming's pretty fragmented, right? So a lot of that is on a TV screen, but a lot of that is on mobile devices. So this is actually where, like, if I were to go do a broadcast buy, they would never say, do you want all TV devices or do you want TV mobile? But with streaming, that is like something that I would specify. So if I'm looking at it as a true TV extension, I would specify TV only devices. If I didn't care where it ran, then, mobile's fine as well too.
Got it. So for today's conversation, we're going to separate things like mobile we'll put that in the online video bucket. But today we're really only talking about TV, and we're defining that as a real TV. Sit down on the couch, watch it.
Correct.
Got it. So where is the TV watching audience going? Like, everyone's doing streaming now, right?
Yeah. So it's, Nielsen has released they come out twice a year. So this summer they came out with the latest report showing that streaming is actually making up about 38% of TV viewing. And
wait, Nielsen is a guy?
Yeah. He's a guy in the back room, like the Wizard of Oz. Is kind of the standard for TV measurement, TV viewing. In fact, in the past, they didn't even measure streaming. So over the last few years, it's been brought into measurement. And for, the first time it's finally surpassed cable and broadcast in the latest kind of June report that they've shared. So about 38% are consuming TV through streaming online, online being internet. And then it's about 30% cable and actually 20% broadcast. So broadcast is the lowest of the three.
But in this Nielsen, the gauge report you're talking about, some of those numbers might be a little misleading, right? Especially when it comes to the popularity of streaming.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to think of is just how fragmented streaming is. So kind of like cable, right? You've got hundreds of networks. With streaming, there's a lot of different those same networks or publishers that are providing content that you can get streaming through. It expands from there. So I think one is just the fragmentation. So when we look at the numbers to see, okay, it's 20% broadcast, 38% streaming. Well, my broadcast is CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox. You've got like your public broadcasting and some other channels in there too. But for the most part, it's kind of those big four. It's a lot less fragmented than YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Paramount, Pluto, other fast supported, free ad supported TV, virtually every other, provider out there. So it's like 4 versus 100. And then I think the other thing is when you look at this data that's been provided is the number one publisher for streaming TV is YouTube. So that's not, necessarily, it's not bad content. It's just not necessarily premium content on a TV screen.
Yeah, YouTube isn't real TV.
Yeah. And, another thing to think of is just, when we talk about TV and we talk about premium quality, right? What on the streaming side, what we really want to focus on is FEP inventory. That's full episode players or 22-minute show, right? So if I'm watching a 22-minute episode of Friends with ad breaks built in on cable, or I'm watching it on streaming, like that show is my FEP inventory. Well, I don't go to YouTube to watch FEP inventory, right? I go to YouTube to watch user-generated content, or maybe clips of that full episode inventory, but I'm not going in to watch like a full TV show. And I think the other thing that's really important to call out here is in that report, YouTube does not include YouTube TV. So it's truly YouTube. It can be viewed on the TV screen, but it's not the YouTube TV kind of streaming. I canceled my cable and I added YouTube TV. That's not in these numbers.
Yeah. So this report's a little misleading, at least in the eyes of us, like advertisers.
Right. It's streaming, but it's not only on my TV premium content. Right. And I think like maybe someone who's not in marketing, maybe the CEO of the company, maybe, just someone who's never actually gone in and like looked at these buys might think, oh, all of my streaming video is running on Netflix, Hulu, YouTube TV, that's where it is. And that's just not true at all.
Got it. So let's talk about broadcast. Give me the case for broadcast TV advertising for zoos, aquariums, gardens, museums. Is this a viable option for us still?
Yes. In most cases it is. Obviously, market by market, it's going to vary, but I think one of the most important things to remember is with a nonprofit attraction, you're trying to spread your mission to every generation, right? You're trying to drive visitation from a pretty large audience in a local market, and even expanding outside of that market. And, broadcast can still provide a strong reach against, several audiences. So kind of that multi-generational, spread our mission, spread awareness. Broadcast can still be a really great, part of your overall media plan. So I think this idea of like nobody's watching, well, yes, the data is showing it shifting to streaming. And if you dive into the data, we're seeing it's like younger versus older, and we'll put the line at 40. Our millennials aren't exactly like little kids anymore, right? But our millennial audience, which is definitely a primary segment for many nonprofit attractions, because we're trying to reach parents with kids, and a lot of millennials have kids now. So that audience is probably is going to be easier to reach with streaming. But when we're talking about the millennials' parents, right, our baby boomers or Gen X, like they're still going to be able to be reached with broadcast TV. And in fact, they're watching broadcast and streaming is what we're seeing. So whereas our millennial audience is watching mainly streaming, our older boomers and Gen X are doing broadcast and streaming. So it's a good reach extension when we talk about adding streaming onto our broadcast buys.
Well, yeah, you kind of touched on that, but give me the reasons on why should we complicate our marketing efforts even more and consider buying streaming TV?
Well, like I just said, reach extension. So it's going to be hard to go in. I think in the past we used to think, how do I reach more people with my media dollars? And it was buy more TV. And now
buy more broadcast TV.
Buy more broadcast TV, right? So now what we're saying is, well, yeah, buy more TV, but don't just buy more broadcast. We're going to buy streaming to complement our broadcast, right? Or maybe we're going to carve off some of our broadcast dollars to move it over to streaming. So we still are going heavy after TV potentially for our strategy, But TV is not just broadcast anymore, broadcast and cable. Now it's broadcast, cable, and streaming, or broadcast and streaming, or in some cases, maybe just streaming.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm the marketing director, and we've set a goal where we just want to reach millennials, that, the family with young kids in the house, 25, 44 is my demo. I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket. It seems like if that was the strategy, then streaming only would be the execution in terms of TV dollars.
Yeah, I think that could absolutely be a viable strategy to go streaming only if you're reaching that 25 to 40 audience. Another great strategy or tactic around kind of more streaming is if you're trying to expand outside of a market. So maybe you're running your broadcast to really have like high reach against a very large audience in your local market, but now you're looking at expanding that footprint some, and you might not have the budgets, or you might not be quite ready to go in and reach everyone in a completely new DMA, but you can start expanding that footprint by a radius. So maybe I want to expand outside of my DMA by 10 or 20 miles or a drive distance, versus saying I'm going to go in and buy, another entire DMA with broadcast that's going to actually be kind of cost prohibitive, really. So we're looking at, you can start kind of gradually expanding that footprint with streaming, where you're doing a zip or radius targeting.
Well, I like that. One of the limitations of broadcast TV is you have to buy the entire DMA.
The entire market, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so we've been talking about streaming, but cable offers that granularity when it comes into geo. I can buy a zone in another DMA. I can buy heavy up on a zone within my DMA. Talk to me about the benefits of streaming over cable. Is it either or? Do you do both? Why would I want to pick one? Go for it.
So it comes back to the audience. So if I was trying to reach my older audience, I might look at broadcast and cable together. I think in most cases now what we're seeing is that streaming is replacing cable, right? Our cord cutting has to do with I'm cutting the cable cord, not necessarily the broadcast cord. So the trend is moving obviously to streaming. Streaming's already surpassed cable. But that's usually where we're seeing like it's broadcast and streaming, or, streaming only, versus I'd say it's kind of rare that we've gone into a market and lately and really just done like a cable only buy.
Got it. So cable's declining in its penetration. You mentioned cord cutting. It seems like streaming is eating cable's lunch, but broadcast is still a viable play for a broad reach strategy.
Yep, exactly.
You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their mission through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media. Attend Media is a media planning and buying agency specializing in zoos, aquariums, gardens, and museums. For more information, please visit attend.media. Now, back to Ryan and Jenny.
Okay, so buying streaming TV. This isn't as easy as calling up the local rep and saying, hey, I want to buy ABC local news. Streaming is complex.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the first thing that you want to think about or remember is, just as we started this conversation, all streaming TV is not on TV. So you do need to specify what you're buying. And I do think it's important to at least know what you're buying, even if, it's not all running on TV. Like, what we don't want to do is we're going back, the CEO of the company is thinking, everything we're running is on Netflix, or everything we're running is on Hulu, because it's not, right? So just like it's not maybe all on TV, but you can absolutely build a buy to just run on TV. So you can select and specify the device that you want to run on. It will lower your audience. It will increase your CPMs. But if I'm running streaming as a true TV extension, a true broadcast extension, like there's absolutely cases where I would just run TV device only. The other thing that you need to look at is if you're running TV only, you should be seeing about a 95% completion rate on your video. If you're seeing lower completion rates, like 60, 70%, a good portion of that inventory is probably on a mobile device. So that's one way to, if you don't know the details of that buy, maybe you're the CEO versus the media buyer, that's a good way to kind of identify like where your ads are running based off of that completion rate.
Yeah. So a little tip there, completion rate under 95%, red flag. You're probably running on non-TV devices.
Yeah. And not red flag like you have a bad buy, but just you're maybe not buying what you thought you were buying. And then I think just knowing what you're buying, it's not just a line item on the plan. Just like you probably don't have a line item on your plan that just says TV, $100,000, right? It's
here's the check.
It's it's the NBC affiliate, the ABC affiliate, the Fox affiliate. Like, where are you running? There are some limitations with where you're running with streaming, so you can't get show specific. I'm not going in and buying, Dancing with the Stars only when it comes to streaming. It's typically publisher. Well, first and foremost, it's audience based, right? So we're saying we don't care as much where our audience is, as long as I'm reaching millennial parents in the Dallas DMA. I don't care where they're watching it. That's typically how we would go in and buy streaming. And then we put some quality control on it in terms of the TV device only or the, full episode player content.
Well, wait, hang on. Let's unpack that a little bit more. So it sounds like one of the major benefits of buying streaming TV is I can go target an audience based on something beyond just demographic or content, like we're limited to within broadcast TV.
Yeah, you can. But on a local level, if you over-target, you risk not reaching enough people. So we're still trying to use streaming in most cases as kind of this brand awareness, premium kind of content play. And then we over-target so much that we serve minimal impressions.
Oh, but just humor me. Give me some examples of some audience targeting I can do with streaming. I mean, can I target somebody who just maybe went into a competing attraction, went to the zoo, and I'm the aquarium?
You can, but on a local level, you're probably going to get very, very little inventory. You could run as little as a couple $100 against that, and you might say that's fine. I don't care. But at the end of the day, we've got to reach enough people to actually drive visitation into our parks. And I would say the better play to do that type of targeting would be in maybe some of our social channels, other digital, like online video, where your reach is going to be much higher than just streaming specifically.
So is this one of those just because you can doesn't mean you should? Exactly.
And there are places where that makes sense within a media plan, within a digital buy, but probably not how you want to target, your streaming video.
Okay. So this sounds great. I'd like to carve off all my broadcast TV budget and move it to Netflix.
Not happening for a local advertiser.
Well, what can I buy?
So I know kind of the other big hype over the last year or so has been, the fact that Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO, which is now Max, have all started introducing kind of a lower tier ad supported plan, kind of, very much mimicking kind of how Hulu has done it. The problem with all these is just on a local level, there are not enough subscribers to go in and just do a buy only on that. If you were buying multiple markets, this might make sense. Or if you're buying kind of a little bit of everything, this makes sense. But this is not how I would recommend setting up a buy for a local nonprofit attraction. How I would look at going in and setting up a buy is if you're going to carve off like that one premium publisher, it's Hulu. Hulu by far is going to be the best. I mean, again, going back to that Gauge report, it's number 2 behind, it's actually number 3. So it's YouTube, Netflix, Hulu.
And YouTube's not real TV.
Correct.
Netflix, we can't do locally.
Right. So Hulu is going to be our number 1 publisher that we can actually go in and do a local ad buy on. So I would look at it as Hulu, I would bucket that as its own, because chances are, I do want to hit an audience watching Hulu in a market. And then my kind of next tier would be all other premium publishers kind of blended. So my Paramounts, my Peacocks, even like our fast TV, our free ad supported TV, like Samsung and things like that. Like those can all be, that's all online streaming content where we can include full episode player, 22-minute inventory. So I'd bucket all of that together because every market's going to vary, and I might have a few people on each one of these, different platforms. So I want to group them all together versus trying to do like a dedicated buy on every single one, because you're not giving it any room to actually kind of optimize across all of these different publishers if you were to break each one out individually.
What kind of CPMs are we talking about with Hulu?
Hulu can be kind of closer to that $30 range. And then our sort of second tier, sort of in between that $20 and $30 range. And, all of this varies based off of the type of targeting, the size of the market, and then the time of the year. And it's really kind of follows broadcast if you think about that, because the more targeted you are, the higher your CPMs are going to be. The more, in broadcast, we think about more in terms of like the least amount of shows or day parts that we buy, probably the higher our CPMs are going to be. And then the, quarter by quarter, the rates are going to vary, with holiday, of course, being our most expensive time, particularly for streaming.
So it sounds like if I've got to buy a streaming TV and it's just a line item on my plan and I really have no idea where it's running and I'm getting CPMs in the $12 range, I'm probably not getting real TV. Yeah,
it's probably limited in terms of you may be like 50% of that inventory is running on TV screens. Maybe half of it is actually that full episode content. But I'd question it. It's not that it's bad, but like I'd put that in that sort of like third tier bucket of kind of can run anywhere, everywhere. We don't care. But if you're not kind of looking at it this way, chances are everything is running in that third tier. And it's, you're just not aligning it with that premium content that you think you're aligning it with.
Yeah, that could be a little scary.
Yeah, I think especially for like a nonprofit attraction, like where you run is really important. And I think with the changes in technology, with, the introduction of programmatic media across virtually every channel that we can buy in now, it's so great because we can focus on the audience and not the placement. But for a lot of advertisers, the placement still really matters. And, I would argue that you always kind of want a blend of, premium, high quality with maybe more audience targeting, less concern over where it's running. But if everything that you have is, we have no idea where it's running and who cares, it's just the audience. I mean, you kind of think about nonprofit attractions, it's more than just a performance-based strategy, right? So we're not just trying to drive like the lowest, cost per conversion on the website for, a ticket sale, because a lot of people are still walking up and buying tickets. So most of what we run, we can't even track down to that. But I think this is just where we do care, or, nonprofit attractions do care about where their ads running, because when we're talking about it, especially if it's a mission-based message, like we want that, to be aligned in the right content so that someone's in the right mindset when they're receiving that message and actually wants to go and take action. So it's important to know where your ad's running. We shouldn't just be so concerned with like, don't worry about where it's running. It's just about the audience. I don't think that's true for this particular industry. And I think for a lot of industries, that's something that you've got to balance both sides of it.
Okay, so kind of recap, Hulu, a $30 CPM can creep up closer to $40 CPM during kind of peak demand, Q4 holiday. Paramount, Peacock, maybe about a $20 to $30 CPM. And then your next tier down is Fast, free ad-supported TV. This is your Samsung TV, your Pluto, maybe about a $20 CPM, give or take a little bit. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, all based off markets too.
And if you're getting a streaming, quote unquote, real TV buy where CPMs are coming below $20 CPM, that's an opportunity to question where exactly that inventory is running.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the device breakout in terms of the percentage on each device, those types of things.
All right. So let's recap all of this. What are the three things you want folks to walk away with?
We're not quite yet abandoning broadcast, right? Is still a viable, channel that we should be looking at for our media mix. But we are looking at shifting our dollars as our audience shifts, right? So younger audiences, more to streaming, but we're not walking away from broadcast quite yet.
And number two?
Look at TV and online video differently. So our streaming is the one kind of TV bucket that is technically not just TV. So know what you're buying, and break those two things out.
Yeah, and then once again, that $20 to $40 CPM range is what we should expect for streaming on real TV.
Correct.
And number 3.
Well, when we say know what you're buying, you should have, transparency in that buy. So what am I buying on Hulu? What percentage is going on some of these premium publishers? What list makes up the premium publishers, right? Ask these questions. Make sure that you have this going into a buy. And then, of course, you can always get reporting back by publisher and device for everything you run. Keep in mind, you cannot get show level reporting in most cases. Maybe some of the publishers direct you can, but it's pretty difficult to get still.
Jenny, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. If you have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit our website at marketingattractionspodcast.com.